You check the stream.
Still waiting for it to go live. Oh.
Live yet?
Yes.
It's live. Okay. Now we can't hear Steve. I don't know if that's, did he indicate whether he can hear us?
No, we didn't.
Okay. Well, how do everyone wishes to proceed then, or?
I think we should start.
Okay.
It's almost 10 after.
Did you have given the nature of the meetings that we're currently conducting as they're live streamed, please submit any public comments remotely that you may have to publiccomments@townofdyer.com. If you're watching the live stream on YouTube, you'll see that email address listed at the bottom of the video itself. And any of those will be read at the appropriate time in the meeting and will be responded to accordingly.
Good evening. I would like to welcome you to the Town of Dyer Town Council meeting of June 11th, 2020. Please stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. May we have the roll call, please?
Yes, Bob?
Here.
Eric?
Here.
Alan?
Here.
Mary?
Here. Steve Kramer is here, but
Telephone.
just by via, okay. He will be allowed to attend the meeting, but he will not be allowed to vote because of his not being present. We have a consent agenda before you, which includes the minutes of the May 14th, 2020 Town Council meeting, the minutes of the May 28th, 2020 Town Council meeting, minutes of the May 28th, 2020 executive session, claims totaling $961,211.07, and resolution 2020-09 uncollectible debt. Do I have a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion to to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Roll call, please.
Bob?
Aye.
Eric?
Aye.
Alan?
Aye.
Mary?
Aye. Next, we have the announcements. COVID-19 update. We're moving to stage 4 with openings moved to June the 12th, which is tomorrow.
Yep, we're as ready as we're ever going to be.
Good.
Everything will open.
Nice. The Town Council would like to recognize the month of June as Alzheimer's and Brain Awareness Month, International Childhood Cancer Awareness Month, and Professional Wellness Month as well. Anybody have any comments about any of those? Okay. Reports from the Town Council. Bob, do you have anything?
I have nothing at this time.
Alan?
I just want to thank Tom for that quick work on the vacant home on Knighthood. I know the neighbors were very happy that there was people out there today cleaning it up.
We were lucky, Bill. We happened to get a hold of the trustee. Bill happened to know the person, so they're out there. We're doing an inspection on Monday.
Okay.
But we became aware that the property is still in the original property owner's name, but the records here in town for the water were in the name of an individual in Gary, whom I called, and he turned out to be a property manager for a trust.
Okay.
It turned out then that the head of the trust contacted me, and I explained the circumstances to him. They immediately went out there to look at the property, and we made arrangements for code enforcement and Brand Lane to go out there at 11 o'clock on Monday to examine the premises. They informed me, first of all, there were no 10-foot weeds there. I went by there myself and I didn't see one, but also that the inside of the home is move-in ready if somebody wants to move into it.
Good. Good. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
We have another property at
I think it's 100 Chateau
Correct.
that we're in court with, that some people called about. So that's moving towards the court later this month for a status hearing or a preliminary hearing.
He was charged with ordinance violations back last year. They were
Yes.
set for hearing in April, and that got bumped by the court until June.
Okay.
So we'll be in court on those ordinance violations. And I think Dave's office, if there may be additional code violations out there that are coming up, they'll come up in due course of things.
Good, good. Because I know the neighbors in that area have contacted me and thank you, for all the work you've done on that. Eric?
Yeah, we've got our Dyer Community Market continues to move forward. We're slated for a July 7th kickoff for that market. I'd like to thank Michael Shea and the entire park staff, along with our citizen volunteers, Beth Vandergrind and Melissa Verber, for their great work trying to put this together. Finalizing vendors right now, and in trying to figure out the last of our COVID-19 precautions, trying to figure out where we're going to be, what stage come July 7th, and what we need to do. So thank you to everybody that's been working on that.
Thank you. I want to thank everybody that helped do the plantings last Tuesday when it was very warm on the gazebo and in front of the EMS building. We had a good group of people that worked very diligently to get that all planted. So make sure that you check it out. We were really glad to see the rains come because it kept them well watered. So we've got a couple of different places in Dyer with the park signs that are well planted and they're looking good. So thanks for the Dyer in Bloom group because they are responsible for doing that. Appreciate that. Clerk Treasurer, do we have anything?
Yes, I have one donation that came in for the police gift for the K-9 program of $1,500 from Country Financial.
Good.
So if we could have a motion to accept that donation for the K-9.
I'll make a motion to accept the donation from Country Financial in the amount of $1,500 for the police K-9. I'll second that motion.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Let's have a roll call.
Bob?
Aye.
Eric?
Aye.
Alan?
Aye.
Mary?
Aye.
Also, we have a letter from Cold Stone that I'll read out. Gentlemen, I'm so sorry for the incredible delay in paying this fine. Even more sorry that the fine was necessary. I think the alarm problem has been taken care of. Would like to add that I am incredibly impressed with the police department. I have yet to meet an officer that was anything but polite and genuinely nice to talk to. Over the years, we have had a couple of situations, very minor, where we needed their assistance. Each officer was great. So sorry I never took the time to write about them or have their names, but know that you have a tremendous force. Denise Beddinghoff.
Oh, nice.
I'll make a copy, Dave, so you can have it for the police commission meeting.
Is that it?
Yep.
Okay.
That's it.
Town
manager.
The only thing I would add is that our census is up to 84 and some change.
Good.
We're getting there, but I want to get to at least 85 if we can. That'll take us to 2019, but we're moving ahead.
Good. Thank you. Boards and commissions. I see one board member here, and that would be Nanette. Would you like to say something about the park board?
Actually, we had a lovely meeting on Tuesday with a lot of great input, talking about ice skating rinks and water pads and all kinds of things. Mike's been very quick to respond about portable ice skating rink that Mike worked in birthday. And things seem to be progressing.
Good.
I know we got things to Tom, I'm sure. Good grant going into place that's going to provide more ADA services for different parks.
Good.
It's also going to be a huge plus. Now, we're forging ahead, and it's really good.
Good. Glad to hear that. Thank you. Frank?
Well, we've been moving along with progressing on our different projects for water and sanitary. Some of our milestones are more significant. Upcoming accomplishments is in the next week we'll be opening bids for the open cut and slip lining project. And as I believe I reported on last time, it's somewhat significant in the sense that for the first time, we think we have our category 5s, which is the most severe lines in our system structurally, will be covered under this this particular project. Of course, I say that's at this time because things will get progressively worse, unfortunately, in the system as time goes on, and our 4s will become 5s. But basically, we're making good progress, or will have great progress made on that list, as a milestone event here for us with this project. Because again, we've been doing these every year, so this I think is significant. And again, I believe we reported last time we've collected all the data we needed for a comprehensive televising, but comprehensive flow monitor throughout the system. That we've got all that data. Nice Engineering, who's here tonight, is working on that data now, getting more data from Stantec, and hopefully in the next 30 to 60 days, we'll start to get some of the first reports that we expect to have from that analysis in terms of a performance map of our sanitary system, in terms of how the areas that were under these different flow monitors, how they're performing, and where we have any undersizing and the severity of that undersizing. So that's ongoing. In addition, we have some project related to phosphorus removal that'll be discussed later on in this agenda tonight under old business, as well as there's been a lot of discussion and analysis and recommendations regarding the above ground storage tank, water tank that we've been looking at. That one is also under old business under the 3 million gallon water storage tank. So reserve this discussion for that part of the meeting. So, but again, a lot of progress, and of course, many, many other projects that aren't as large, but as important that are getting accomplished in the system here. So.
Good. Thank you. Department heads. Chief 1, Chief 2.
You got my report from the fire department. I really don't have anything else to add at this point.
Did you get your geraniums planted?
I don't know. I wasn't here.
Okay. Chief Dave?
Yes, thank you. For the month of May, we had 861 incidents, 16 arrests, 28 vehicle accidents, 61 citations, 118 warnings, and 61 ordinance violations. For activity for us, we had our newest officer graduate the academy on June 4th. So he is back with us for the remaining 2 to 3 weeks of training. Then he'll be on solo patrol out on his own. We're looking forward to that. That will bring us up to 29 solo patrol, with still 3 vacancies that the commission held interviews for. Last week, they had a long night, had 20 interviews.
Wow.
I've narrowed it down to the top 4. That'll be this coming week on Monday. And they hope to move quickly, possibly have something prepared for next Thursday's commission meeting as far as recommendation or certification.
Good.
Our 12-hour shifts are scheduled to start June 27th. We've been working on schedules and aligning 4 6-man shift spots so that they can take over for 12-hour shifts. And you heard earlier the one donation for the K9 fund that seems to still be very hot and popular. We have identified the need for an additional K9 since the 12-hour shifts kind of creates 2 platoons of officers. Our current patrol dog of Rocco will be on 1. We are in negotiations for the 2nd patrol dog for the other platoon. And Colt will bring the school resource partner to Officer Kissinger. We hope to have something identified and hope to have still funds available in our donations to cover the cost of it. So we're in good shape when it comes to that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mike? Parks?
Yeah, this is Eric mentioned by the Direct Community Market. July 7th and July 21st are first. Just as Eric mentioned, July 7th and July 21st are our first 2 Direct Community Markets, 4 to 8, and then we would have music playing from 5:30 to 8:30. We just submitted a land and water grant for Autumn Chase Park improvement, so we should hear back here within the next few months on that, but that's slated for work for next year. We're currently working on a topo contract with Robinson Engineering for the pond over at Pheasant Hill Park for a walking path. The topo also includes work for park improvement for Cherry Hill as well. And then we originally had a June 12th bid opening for Central Park ball field walking path and pond project. We had to push that back to next Thursday, so the new date for that is June 18th. at 10 o'clock here at Town Hall.
Okay. Thank you. Jeff? Public Works? Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Nope. Moving on to road projects. Neil,
Good evening.
good evening.
We have quite a few updates this evening. Thanks. We have the 2019 CCMG North Gate reconstruction that is on schedule for completion this year. We'll be able to close that out with NDOT. The 2019 CCMG resurfacing, which was Eastern, 205th, 206, Berkeley, Foliage. Those projects are completed. We're remaining punch list items to close that project out. The 2020 locally funded projects, we're preparing the bid documents for that, and we're looking at construction late summer this fall. And those projects were in Tom's memo from last week. That's Ridgewood Lane, Ridgewood Court, Wood Drive, Forest Park, Chateau, essentially all in Chateau Woods. The 2020-1 CCMG, we were awarded that money. We're waiting on NDOT contracts. Due to when they close out their fiscal year, we hope those contracts will be back within the next 60 days, and then we can get Dire Construction, who was the awarded contractor, the notice to proceed on that. The 2020-2, we're preparing for a September application for 2021 construction, and those projects are Perry, Squire, High Point Trails, 215, and Robles. I have some surprising good news. If Tom didn't let you know, we got confirmation from Lake County. They have given us the go-ahead to complete the 81st and Sheffield turn lane widening for the northbound east turn onto Sheffield. So we're going to increase that from about a 2-foot radius to a 60-foot radius. And we're going to work with the county to prepare the design of the bid documents, and then move forward with land acquisition. We need about a 20 by 40 triangle parcel that they need to acquire with either a right-of-way easement or acquiring that property. And the main challenge on that project is going to be a relocation of a utility pole. And we went out yesterday, got all the information on that pole. I'm going to give Rick Kalinsky a call tomorrow to get moving forward on that. But the relocation of that utility pole is going to be the most challenging part of the project. It is very straightforward.
Good.
Any questions?
No, I think it's great because with people going back to work, there's going to be more traffic at that corner, and it's really terrible.
Yeah, and that's a very unique corner in town.
It is.
Essentially, it's the county owns that southeast portion
Right.
of the intersection. And Tom and I tried to work with the county and say, hey, we'll do it. You know,
Yeah.
We don't have jurisdiction. So fortunately, the county's taking the lead on that.
Good.
And we're moving forward.
That's what happens when people cooperate. Thank you.
Yeah, it's a fantastic thing. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Next on the agenda, we have ordinances and resolutions. Before you, you have Resolution 2020-10, a resolution of the Town Council declaring and authorizing temporary internal fund borrowing. Need a motion to approve?
Yeah, motion to approve resolution number 2020-10, a resolution of the Dyer Town Council declaring and authorizing temporary internal fund borrowing.
I'll second the motion.
Tom, you wanted to say something?
Well, this is just a preventive action. We don't know what our June settlement will be. We know it'll be probably less than what we normally would get. So what you have here is the estimates of the staff as to what we believe our worst case scenarios will be in these funds. The clerk's office will be at the end of the month when they get the settlements, work through the math, settle everything. Then we'll come back in July with a confirmatory resolution that will establish it. And we don't anticipate having to extend these loans very long. We want to get them paid for as quickly as we can. It's just a cash flow situation. What you see is you got park bond and interest, the geo bond and interest, and the water district bonds. Those half payments have to be made. And that's why we want to ensure there's enough cash in those funds to be able to do that. So we're continuously monitoring our cash situation. We'll know more in July.
Okay, thank you. We have a motion and a second. You have a roll call, please. Is there any more discussion? You have a roll call, please.
Bob?
Aye.
Eric?
Aye.
Alan?
Aye.
Mary?
Aye. Next, we have the town credit card. This ordinance 2020-03. And it is for an ordinance authorizing the town of Dyer, Lake County, Indiana, to obtain credit cards and authorizing the use of said credit cards by designated officials and agents of the town of Dyer, Indiana. Do we have a motion to approve 2020-03?
I'll make a motion that we accept ordinance 2020-03, an ordinance authorizing the town of Dyer, Lake County, Indiana, to obtain credit cards and authorizing the use of said credit cards by designated officials and agents of the town of Dyer, Indiana.
Do I have a second?
First reading.
On first reading.
On first reading.
Okay. You have a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion?
I've got a question about the tracking of the purchases on the credit card. How does this show up on a line item on a monthly report? Does this just show up as a payment to credit card 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, or does it actually show up for what the expense was?
We get one bill on the credit card, even though there's gonna be individual bills going out, just like they borrowed and you took to aid. It all comes back on one bill to the clerk's office. Then we disperse it to get line item to that department for what they did, whether it's public works or park department or.
So then it would show up in the Parks Department as
Yeah,
what they
and their
purchased.
budget, yes.
And they-
And
just like-
theoretically, on the warrant that you have to approve, the credit card bill will be attached.
Right,
Yeah.
and plus, like
With
when
the-
you guys go.
But I
out
know
to use
what
it,
you're
you have to
asking
bring
for
back
is
your
the budget.
receipts.
Yeah,
Like at the hotels, you had to bring back your receipts
Yeah.
in order to turn that into us that you used it there. And then we have proof and we match that up to the credit cards. Jackie takes care of all those credit cards. Do you have anything to add, Jackie?
No, just whenever you see a payout for the credit card company, you go to that claim, pull it, do all the receipts.
We have a motion and a second for ordinance 2020-03 on first reading.
these are replacing the existing cards that we had. We've changed banks. And,
Well, we
Okay.
didn't change banks.
oh, I'm sorry, we
The
changed,
bank- The bank was with Omaha. Their contract was
Oh,
up. When I
that's what it
first
was.
got in, we had a hard time changing over the names from the clerk. And then just to get with it, and then we got into the COVID-19. So we just wanted the bank to be housing it, so we just have to deal with calling up the bank here and the Treasury Department instead of going to Omaha.
still
all the
First
time.
Midwest, though, right?
Yeah, still with
Okay.
First Midwest, but they have a
Just a paying
contract with
agent.
them. They quit the contract with Omaha,
Okay,
so I just wanted accountability.
okay. Need a roll call?
Bob,
Aye.
Eric,
Aye.
Alan,
Aye.
Mary.
Aye. We need a motion to approve ordinance 2020-03 on second reading.
Motion to approve on second reading?
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call?
Only thing I'm gonna add in discussion is, and I talked with Bill about this, and Tom, we're gonna come up with a document for whether it's in the personnel book for using the tax exempt cards.
We're talking about the credit stuff, we're talking about the rental stuff now.
No, this is.
No,
still
Oh, I'm
credit
sorry,
cards.
I'm sorry, I'm
But
reading,
Right, you're trying-
okay.
there should be
I
an
wasn't paying
additional, but it
attention, I was
can't be in
reading.
the same ordinance, but I want in place something with tax exempt because we don't have that right now.
Okay,
We're gonna develop policy.
Yeah,
yes, thank you.
Bob,
Aye.
Eric,
Aye.
Alan,
Aye.
Steve, I'm sorry, Mary.
Aye. Motion's approved on second. Next, we have ordinance 2020-04, repeal rental registration ordinance. And this rental is an ordinance establishing a rental registration program in the town of Dyer, Lake County, Indiana, and all matters related thereto. You fill this in a little bit, or?
pardon?
Just rescinding those ordinances because of state statute.
Okay.
Effective July 1st does not allow us to do it.
Okay. Do I have a motion to approve ordinance 2020-04?
I'll make the motion.
A second?
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call?
Bob,
Aye.
Eric,
Aye.
Alan,
Aye.
Mary.
Aye. Next, we have old business.
Second reading.
Reading on that ordinance.
Sure. Ordinance 2020-04, repeal rental registration ordinance on the second reading, please. We have a motion to approve it on the second reading.
I'll make that motion.
Alan?
I'll second.
Have any discussion? Roll call?
Bob,
Aye.
Eric,
Aye.
Alan,
Aye.
Mary.
Aye. Next, we have old business, item non-compliance letter.
Well, if there's any
I'm sorry, I
questions.
missed, okay, go ahead.
Well, this was a letter that we received regarding our phosphorus violations, things that have occurred. I think the letter is pretty self-explanatory.
Right.
Jeff, John, and Joe are here if you have any, and Frank are here if you have any specific questions. But this is an informational item. We've been studying this for some time, and this is and the utility board at their last meeting approved the contract to do the installation of the mechanical stuff. So it's just an FYI because the notice came to the attention of the council. So if you have any questions, these guys will be happy to answer them.
Do we have an idea why the phosphorus spiked?
At this time, right now, we have theories, but nothing concrete, why it actually spiked up. So I guess the answer is no.
Okay.
But we have multiple theories why it did. So we actually can control it now to some degree biologically, but again, it's not reliable. That's why we're that kind of treatment aspect.
Okay.
And
Is it possible it's related to certain businesses in town?
No, it's actually nothing to deal with the influence side of it.
Okay. Okay.
yeah, there's extensive analysis that was done because initially that was a thought that perhaps it was the source on the influence side. But regardless of that, item will require as a backup to have this for this very reason, that sometimes you can control it biologically. You may be able to, sometimes you may not be able to. And therefore a chemical system needs to be in place for those times when you can't.
Has it happened before?
Well, we just started having this as a requirement. And Jeff, if you want to elaborate.
Oh, okay.
We started actually in March of 2019. So again, it's relatively new. We were monitoring it for 2 years prior to that. And before that, there was nothing that showed up as abnormal. So this is relatively new for us.
Okay.
And on the biological end, Alan, what Jeff is continuing to work on ways of controlling it biologically, because once this facility is built, there's going to be unfortunately a significant expense in the chemicals that are used to provide the treatment. So hopefully with some of the methods that Jeff's looking at now, maybe some improvements to the treatment facility, we'll be able to control that biologically. So we use less chemical and therefore we'll have much lower operating costs. And I think Tom speaks to that in his memo of it could be in $100,000 in that vicinity. So so he'll continue to work with that and hopefully we'll get some good success with that. And we can't avoid the capital expenditure, but perhaps we can diminish the operating expenditure.
Anybody have any questions?
Just one on this, knowing that the money that comes in, has a purpose everywhere. Of that $100,000, if that is going to be the cost, how much of that do we have, and how much of that do you think we'll have to fold into a new rate?
Well, I don't know the answer to that because we'll have to include it. It's going to obviously be a $100,000 increase. That more than likely will have to go into, majority of it will be into the new rate as a cost.
And again, unfortunately, won't even know what that number looks like until the system's ultimately installed and operated. So it's, we want to be careful with zeroing on just that number because it could be variable in either direction.
Any other questions?
Mary, before we move on, it wasn't on the agenda, so no fault, but it was in our packets for the resolution 2020-09 uncollectible debts.
It was on the consent agenda.
Oh, okay, then I missed that part. Okay, thank you.
Okay. We have Pheasant Hills Pond water quality issues, and I know we've discussed this at great length.
This is just a follow up from the meeting for 2 weeks ago, I guess it was. If hopefully Mr. Kramer will be able to attend next Wednesday's Stormwater Board. We'll discuss it. I've got some ideas on that. The question is how we're going to pay for it, and I've got some ideas on that. So just want to get the technical okay from the utility board so that we're doing the right thing.
Correct.
That's all. It's just, it's their pond. So, and their recommendation is an aerator rather than a fountain. And, you know, the reports are all in there. Nothing's changed.
Okay.
But if they are willing to continue it or say to you, it doesn't do us any good, which is what their previous position has been. If you want to go ahead and do it as a no harm, no foul, we'll come. I've got some ideas on how we'll pay for the thing, so we'll get it done.
Okay, thank you. I mean, that's been around for a long time, decades. Next, we have requested intersection study for stop signs.
We're just completed today the last of the traffic counts. We'll have a report for you in 2 weeks
Okay,
as to whether or not the warrants are there and what you guys want to do with it at that point in time. It's just, again, just keeping you that we're moving along.
well, and I like the idea of the questionnaires being sent out to people and.
Well, that's for the speed humps.
for the
That's a
speed
different
humps.
discussion.
Right.
This is for the stop signs.
But this
A couple
might
of-
not be a bad idea either, is if we kind of throw it into one. Can't we?
What would be not a bad idea?
Just put the stop sign, do people really?
Well,
need
if
a
the stop
sign?
signs meet the warrants, that would be our recommendation. Your decision would be to whether or not you use the warrants as a decision-making metric or not.
Okay,
But the engineering study is being done, it's being completed, you'll have that data, which is what the manual talks about.
okay, thank you.
So we'll have that at the next meeting?
Yeah. Yeah, we just finished them at 6 o'clock tonight.
Okay.
Next on the agenda, we have the 3.0 milligram megagallon, whatever MG is.
Milligram.
Milligram, thank you.
Million gallons.
Water storage tank.
Million gallons, but no B. MG.
You have before you the recommendation, and this is supplemental information to the memo sent out Friday and email sent out Monday. You just want our input as to where
Well,
we are?
We brought half of Nice Engineering with us
Yes.
tonight. Neil's done speaking. He did forget to tell you about Sheffield intersection being done, but that's a nice improvement, so we'll go from there. John Phipps made a brief presentation to the utility board, and he can rehash that if he wants and certainly answer any questions. This has been the topic for some time. The previous council, and we need to get moving. If we're going to go forward, we need to not lose time
Yes,
for the bond issue.
yes.
We need to keep that sequence going so we don't lose our window, and that does take some time.
Does anybody have any questions, Bob?
Just a list. The one question I have is if we as a council decide that the 3 million gallon water tank is the direction that we want to go, but we still want to hit that bond that rolls off at the end of the year for some of the other, looks like we've got some distribution improvements. Is there a problem with that?
No,
Or
if you
do we
read
lose
my memo, if I didn't make it clear, the sizing of the bond issue has always been predicated on what projects are we going to include. We wouldn't include a water main in front of your house in this project because that's a system project. That's a local project as opposed to an entire system.
And that is when we do size a bond, we throw in the kitchen sink, so to speak,
Well.
so we can utilize it in other areas if necessary.
But only in the water utility.
Right.
So you're going to be able to, what the value of the bond issue, the key to the bond issue is the annual retirement, the mortgage payment, if you will. That's how this whole thing has been envisioned, that it wouldn't increase the burden to the water district payers, which is the taxpayers. But you would just extend the length of a new bond issue. It's not the same bond issue, but a new bond issue, that same dollar amount. And as you look in the chart, it gives you different values. And all the way up to, I think, 5 million or 5.5 takes it out to 30 years, but it still keeps it within that 283, 285 number. Okay, so that's the determination that the utility board, because the utility board's got several things. Obviously, the design and the construction of the storage facility. We know we need reinforcement distribution mains going south to visualize it. We're looking at a possible interconnect, an emergency interconnect, which has got a value to it. And just as important now, I think that we haven't done a great deal of investigation of we need to further investigate the reliability or the condition of the transmission line from Highland down to our place, because it goes along Main Street. It comes from the elevator tank on the boulevard, isn't that right? Yeah. So you come down by Myers and comes down Main Street and then comes down Calumet. It's an old water main, and we've had some issues with it. We've just had 2 recent breaks. I think it's incumbent upon us to further investigate that to see if that main needs replacement, reinforcement, whatever it needs to have done. And now is the time to do it, huh?
Is that on our dime?
I believe most of that would be on our dime.
That's what I meant.
Some of it's a shared main, but some of it solely provides for us. Is that all the way through? Okay, that goes back to yeah. Now, we've had a couple of breaks just recently, but it's just the time to do it right. That would then determine the size of that bond issue.
Okay.
You know, you can figure on $4 to $4.5 million is almost a no-brainer with the projects that you know you're going to do. Okay, so you're looking at that category, and then the question gets to be, does it get any bigger? And that's what the utility board's now got to make a determination on, and then move from there.
Mm-hmm.
Your key is understanding that the 285 number, for lack of a more precise number, is what the debt retirement would be.
Okay.
If when we sell the bond, it gets into a situation where it's maybe greater than that for some reason with interest rates, but interest rates are about as low as they're going to get, or, be then. And these are predicted on interest rates that are out there now. We always have the ability to supplement that bond issue payment with a modest amount of improvement funds from year to year to keep it down to that 285. But that's a decision that the utility board and the council could make at the time as we go ahead and do it. But the critical thing is not losing time, because we've got a ratings call and a whole bunch of other stuff that's going to consume a lot of time to get these bonds sold. Getting them sold by the end of the year is the critical path, because then that will include it into the 2021 tax rate.
Okay.
And then the sale date will occur later in the year, the first of the year, but we'll be in good shape. So that's why it's so critical to move forward with this.
Okay, Bob?
We had in the October 2019 memo, the cost of the water tank was 2.47, and now we're looking at 3.1 for an increase of 500,000 or 600,000. Do we have I mean, that was only 9 months ago.
That was based on, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, those are older figures from 19, but I think John can talk to that.
Okay. In section 3.4 of the memo for under mitigation, they talk about distribution improvements at $1.6 million. What type of improvements are those? Is that some of the improvements you're talking about between us and Highland?
No, it's south.
Okay.
Coming out of the pumping station is what that one's all about.
South of Bibbage.
No, coming down Calumet Avenue into the system,
Okay, that's what I
as
wanted
opposed
know.
to
Okay,
coming
okay,
from
gotcha.
Main Street and the Boulevard. They're two different mains.
Okay.
It delivers the water from the storage tank to the rest of the system, essentially. So a very vital main, which also passes under the creek.
Okay.
Transmission main is the one from Highland to us.
To us.
The distribution main is from us into us.
And sometimes we'll call the transmission main the supply
Yeah,
main as well.
Okay.
same
So
thing.
if you see it in the memos.
Without looking at well, I'll say the costs under mitigation option 3.3, the Munster connection for 1.5. The only thing that would mitigate would be an issue with the transmission line from Highland, correct?
Correct.
And the emergency connection with Sheriffville off 77th, that was at $300,000. We can only plan for so many double redundancies. So the thought is, if there is some type of catastrophic failure between Hammond and Highland into Dyer, if we did go that route, we can assume that, if we want to take a peak usage day, we can also then assume that Sheriffville's on peak usage too, so we don't know what type of volume they'd be able to deliver to us. But not counting a high volume day, knowing that the stars have to align for all of those items, how much water do we think we could get from Cherville in an emergency situation for 24 hours? Because it looks like all of these are for 48 hours. And if we've got a flow out of a 3 million gallon tank,
That's not sufficient for our whole system.
Yeah. It's
no,
not-
that's why I want to know how much they can give us in a day.
John? Yeah, please, come on up. I think so.
The Cherville situation is as you spoke. Cherville can only give you water if they have it to give.
Right.
However, we believe the capacity of that connection is about the average day.
Okay.
More like 1.3 million gallons a day is what you can get out of that over a 24-hour period. You can't get, we believe, the maximum day rate out of that system, even if they're in a circumstance where they have it to give you. Is that clear?
Yes. When we have a 3 million gallon usage day on our peak day, this may be a goofy question. I'm going to assume that we're assuming that's a hot day and everybody is watering their lawns, and the industry we do have is using it. What is the difference aside from being double? What makes it a 3 million gallon day?
Essentially, it's irrigation.
Okay. So do we have the ability as the town, if we were faced with this, again, it's a 48-hour scenario, do we have the ability of the town to restrict water usage?
Yes.
Yeah, you have an ability on a practical app.
Assuming an emergency is declared with sufficient facts to justify it. Yes.
Now you want to know what the practical experience is?
Oh yeah.
You get your highest consumptions. But more importantly, I think,
sending out all those guys.
Yeah. And more importantly, it's also if you have a major fire during that peak time period, that puts a strain on the system and stuff like that. That's what part of the concern is, making sure you've got enough backup and storage like that.
There's a stress strain sort of relationship that occurs. You get a high flow due to a fire, for example, or irrigation usage, and that compounded with maybe an inexperienced person closing the fire hydrant too rapidly, causing a water main break, and you can kind of get a domino effect.
Right. And that's why I said planning for a bunch of redundancies. My only concern is that it's a lot of money over a long period of time, and we know that if we do the 5 million over 30 years, 3 or 4 of which will go to this, we know there's going to be other needs in the next 30 years. So what are we putting off to the residents? $3 million for our residents is $700 a household for 48 hours. That's a lot of water. I don't think I spent
for 24 hours because we've already got
Correct.
24 built in.
Correct. So that's where I'm at with it. I think we've got a lot of projects here. If we look at the projects that the utility board has coming up, they mentioned 5.5 million for the water, 7.4, 7.8 for sanitary. So just under the utility board, we're looking at upwards of $13, $14 million in projects that we know are coming up. I just want to make sure that if this is, and I think we've all agreed it's an insurance policy. It's a very expensive insurance policy when we know we have a lot of capital expenses coming up.
Well, let me answer, I think, your first comment about what else are we going to give to the system. The bond issue, you would not do a 30-year bond issue for local water main improvements. This is a system-wide improvement, whether it's 20 years, 25 years, and you can shorten the bond issue by simply increasing the debt payment to some level. So it doesn't have to be 30 years within the rate, because your rate would then retire it. We're locking in the retirement based on the outlay, the collection, the levy. But the water utility is always going to have projects. And we've been spending a little over $1 million a year, between 800 and 1.2 over the last several years doing projects. We would continue to do that. And the projects, of course, will vary as you go on. In recent years, we've painted tanks, we've done big water main, we've done some big infrastructure, and we still have some other big infrastructure projects to go. But nowhere will you have the ability to save up $4 million to do this project out of improvements, because you won't get anything done. All those local projects will pile up, and this project will keep getting pushed further out and be therefore more expensive. So this is a little bit like buying your house. You take your big mortgage out on this, and this is what you do. You're still going to continue. This is replacing a 10-year bond issue, and we still did a series of other improvements because those were taken out of the rates. This is taken out of a tax base. So I think you get 2 bites at the apple this way, keeping everybody in the same position.
And my only thing I'll say is the resident ends up being the apple.
Well, the resident is always the apple, because you're here to provide services to those residents.
Right. And
I can't get around that.
I just want to make sure that we're, doing it the best way we can. Yeah, I don't know. Are we looking for some type of vote to move forward with the storage tank? I would hate to see if, we certainly don't want to discontinue all of the projects. I think it's, what are we looking
Well,
for?
If I might, the projects are for the Water Sanitary Board to determine. Your only role in that is to approve or disapprove bond issue. And if your consensus is that you're not going to approve the bond issue that includes the water tank, I think the water board or sanitary water board needs to know that.
You can't do the distribution. You can't do the water tank without distribution lines. And, the supply line is, we believe, to be important. It's a late addition to the thing, but circumstances change. So it needs to be at least looked at. And then an informed decision made back to the utility board. We were told a few months ago, as you recall, that you weren't sure that the council supported this. And that's why it's here tonight, to find out if, in fact, there's support. We've been doing some preliminary work, but if you're not going to support a bond issue, we got things, we need to move on to something else. And then, yeah.
Because I understand that you're not against the bond issue for things that are going to improve the system.
Correct.
Specifically to the 3 million gallon tank. I was open to this idea when I first heard about it a year ago. I still keep coming back to that Cherville interconnection. I feel that that tank still leaves us vulnerable to disruptions upstream in Hammond or in Highland. To have the ability to interconnect with another town that has a completely different source of water helps mitigate those concerns. I don't see a price tag on 3.5 on the construction of that interconnection, but
300,000 is our current estimate.
300,000.
Yeah.
And that is a continuous connection as long as they can continue to provide us water, whereas this tank is not. Is that correct?
We have to negotiate a rate with them for that water.
Right.
Yeah,
And it's for emergency use only.
What tank are you saying isn't continuous?
The interconnection with Cherville.
It would be there and would be activated in terms of emergency.
Yes.
It wouldn't be an open flow.
Right. Absolutely.
Right.
And one of the things, Eric, if I can, that concerned us about that connection was the fact that the same conditions that may lead to peak flows in this community also may be occurring or would be occurring in Cherville. And that comes back to the point John had made, is if they have the water to give. And that's not something, unfortunately, depending on what the circumstances of our failure event within the community, we may or may not have some or all of what John had mentioned. And that's the reason why and also I think on the list as well, John, why it fell a little bit lower on priority is because you couldn't necessarily count on it being there. And that's the concern, because the same event could ultimately, the high flow event could ultimately affect both of us, a peak flow event.
Alan?
I'm opposed to the tank. I just think it's a expensive insurance project. We've never had an issue in 30 years with obtaining water from Hammond. I've lived in this whole area my whole life. I've never heard of intake problems with ice, even in the worst of winters. I know they had problems in the past with zebra mussels, and they've remedied that problem. I would be in favor of the second line the second source of water to Cherville from the Indiana American Water Company. At least you have a separate source for water.
Well, that's fine. There may be a legal complication with that, anything other than emergency. I would disagree with your suppositions. Having worked here since 1984, there have been several occasions when it's been more than zebra mussels, frazzle ice, and other kinds of things. And only as recently as last year, there was a situation where we were within less than 2 hours of having no more water in the tank due to a water main break. Now, I want to make it clear that this is not before you because of the water main break. This was in fact before the council 2 years before that, almost as a predictor of what could happen. We became very close to losing the system in terms of the Calumet Avenue tank getting taken care of. Now we've done some things to take care of it. Highland got to a point where they were pumping at capacity and they had to shut us off, which took us down a little bit. So it's not more than just an insurance policy. I think it's an intelligent redundancy to the system. It's not like your population is going to grow to 40,000 where you need the water for that. Right. You need to have more than a day's supply of water to have a good water system. There is no magical standard. There's a best practices, and having 1 day is pretty tight. You remember where Handy Andy was on Ridge Road? Mm-hmm. We put 6 million gallons of water on that fire. We had 9 million gallons of storage. Okay, that was far more than 1 day's worth of work. So it is also a catastrophic thing. You have an obligation to make sure that your water's not disrupted. Because go ahead.
Sir, what I'm hearing is double and triple jeopardy situations where we have a failure and there's a massive fire and Cherville is at max capacity and can't get as much as we need.
The Cherville connection to me is not as high a priority. It's important to have. It's an emergency connection only. You wouldn't supply us for that.
The purpose of this is for an emergency.
Well, we have to make sure we can get that source of water. It's a different source. We got to look at our contract with Hammond, and Bill's got to make sure of that. I'm saying is, I think you need more than 1 day's worth of storage. And I think that's what the engineers have talked about and utility boards talked about.
Another thing that I heard at the utility board meeting was the condition of the current water tank. And I believe this tank was built in 91. Is that?
I think that's true.
93.
Yeah.
Can't we hire some engineers to find out where we are in the life expectancy of this?
We inspect that tank on a regular basis. We have engineers. We've done inspections. They can speak to it. Yeah. Yeah.
So if we're performing maintenance, as expected, I mean, I don't understand why that tank shouldn't last 50 years.
Oh, Will, this isn't the point. Isn't the tank falling down? No one's made mention that the tank is in danger. We've never said that the structural integrity of the tank is at fault. That's never been as a mention. I think we're clouding things up, and I want to make sure that we're saying you understand what we're trying to say. If we're saying it wrong, we want to get it clear. But no one's ever said that tank is in failure.
We're talking.
Okay.
I think there was.
We're talking about a bottleneck of the supply to the tank or a bottleneck coming out of the tank to the supply system downstream, correct?
And I would have to say, I really support getting the extra tank because we have so many people that rely on us, namely the hospital. They don't have another place to get their water. I mean, if they really need, if something happens at the hospital, we already know that they've had a catastrophe, more than one. We don't want that to happen. We owe it to the people at the hospital to make sure that we maintain that water. Second thing is, how many schools do we have? If you've ever been in a school when the water is shut off, it's not pleasant. Not pleasant at all. And we also have our residents. You know, if there's a catastrophe at school and just shut the water off, you have to figure out, you know, how you're going to get these kids home safely and how are we going to get our water back on. And we have the residents as well. That's our responsibility. We have to make sure that we have a secure amount of water. And this is one way to do it. This is a structural kind of bond that we're going to have to help overall system, not just this little bitty projects. This is really, really important to everybody in this town that we do have a backup system.
I agree 100%. We need a backup system. I'm just looking at a different backup system. Again, I view it as, do you have a fire hydrant out in front of your house for the pumper to hook up to, or do you have a swimming pool for them to hook up to? I'd rather have a fire hydrant.
Well, the important thing with the fire hydrant is making sure you got them within a close
That's
distance.
right.
Not 1,000 feet apart. That's why they're 300
That's right.
feet in an urban area.
The bottom line comes down to if the majority of the council is not supportive of the bond issue for this water tank, then the utility board should abandon that project and look at other projects. As simple as that. It sounds like you have a majority of the.
We need a vote. That's all.
Okay, we'll take a vote. We'll make a motion. Somebody want to make a motion?
That the council does not support a bond issue.
Correct.
For the second storage tank.
Yep.
I'll make a motion that the council does not support a bond issue with the proposed 3 million gallon water tank.
Do I have a second?
I'll second that motion.
Any discussion? Roll call.
Bob?
Yeah, I know the discussion. I just, I agree with Eric that, we definitely, and I agree with you, Madam President, that we definitely want to make sure that all of our residents, all of our industry, all the commercial properties have access to water, to continuous flowed water. I just think it's a lot of money for an insurance policy. So, no, I don't support it.
So you vote yes. For the
Correct. Sorry. Yes.
Eric?
Aye.
Alan?
Aye.
Mary?
Nay. Do we have another motion? Do we need another motion to look at the share bill? No?
No,
Okay.
that's for the water board.
Okay.
Water Senate board.
Okay. All right. So you will notify the utility board. We have any new business? We have any citizen input?
Frank, do you have anything?
I've received one email of citizen input. It's up on your screen.
Did you read it for the record?
Somebody read it.
I can read it. Good evening. I wanted to make a comment regarding the potential error I see in the Nice Engineering letter to Tom dated September 24th, 2019, included in your study session packets for tonight. There's some statistics.
Included.
But this is about the,
This is about the work study item.
yeah, this is for, no. This is about the traffic, isn't it?
Yeah, I haven't seen the thing, but just from Nice, it's the only letter we got is on the speed humps.
Yeah.
Which is under your
Okay,
work
which is
study
a
to get
RDC
celebration.
thing.
That's what it
Okay,
is.
so I'll read it then.
Well, you won't be live streaming, or are you?
Okay, I'll go ahead and read it. There are some statistics included in this letter regarding petitions submitted from the residents of Hearthstone that are incorrect. I was one of the residents involved in collecting the signatures on the 2 petitions that were submitted to the council. I believe Nice to be using an incorrect denominator when calculating the percentages of support. It appears that they used the number of signatures from the second petition submitted as a numerator, where we only visited the houses that would be in direct proximity to speed humps recommended by ITE, and then incorrectly use the total number of homes in the entire subdivision as a denominator instead of the number of actual homes visited for that specific petition. The results of the calculation gives the appearance there of a lack of support due to the low calculated percentage, when in actuality, it was much higher. If you remember, the council was provided late last year with a copy of the original petition from like 5 years ago when we visited 59 homes on Deer Creek and 54 on Flagstone that Nice references. The actual support for the original petition was was the 95 to 98% range, if I remember correctly. While I don't recall the exact percentages of the second petition, I do remember the level of support being quite high as well, even though we were unable to reach all of the homeowners in those targeted speed hump locations. I also wanted to thank you for your continued efforts to address this pedestrian safety issue that we are all concerned about. Thank you, Mark Belsick, 1344 Flagstone Drive, Dyer, Indiana. Is there any other citizen input?
There's no other comments that have been received at publiccomments@townofdyer.com. I don't know if there's anyone who acting as a citizen is offering up a public comment in the audience tonight.
My name is Michael Wargo. I live at 1766 Amber Way. And I just have one matter that I would like to comment on. I would like to take this opportunity to thank the council, the park board, and the members of the park department for getting us together with our Hearthstone Park. The parking lot is in. It is very nice. The park is being used on a daily basis by a number of different people. And it's getting a lot of use. Of course, people are home right now. They're not going to work.
Yes.
So I would also like to take this opportunity to thank Justin from the park department. I ran into him about 3 or 4 weeks ago. He was keeping the park clean. He was emptying the trash. I pointed out to him that there was a trash can on the north end of the park that was overflowing. I did warn him that the trash can was full of little plastic bags that had been tied shut. So we both knew what he was looking at when he went over there. And I told him it was not going to be pleasant. And he very good about the whole thing. He said, well, that's my job. I'll go there. I'll take care of it. And he certainly did. And I ran into him a couple of times since then. He does a very good job keeping the park clean. I just wanted to bring that to
It's good to hear.
somebody's attention, so he can get the proper accolades for what he does. But thank you all very much for that. We really appreciate it. If you ever want to find me between 9 and 10 o'clock, as long as it's not raining, I'll be there.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there any other citizen input? Hearing none, we have a motion for adjournment.
Motion to adjourn?
A second?
I'll second.
All those in favor, a voice vote?
Aye.
We will take about a 5-minute break. A quick break.
Do you want me to end the stream or?
Yeah, what are we doing? Are you gonna do the work study? You obviously have an interested party that sent you.
Well, I was just going to sign these. I was just going to sign these and pass them
No,
on.
no, no, no. You're gonna live stream the work study?
No.
Okay.
Well, we have the redevelopment commission meeting.
What about redevelopment commission?
Yes, live stream is fine.
Then let's do redevelopment next. Then.
Okay, right now?
Yeah.
And if we can proceed into that, otherwise we have to shut down and restart.
So we're gonna move right into that. Mary, there's contracts for you guys to sign?
I did.
And then who's vice president of redevelopment, Eric?
Eric.
He's got to sign them too. I think there's 2 signatures on those big contracts.
You to the Dyer Redevelopment Commission meeting of June 11th, 2020. We've already done the call to order, the pledge of allegiance and roll call. Frank, can you please reread or give us the digest system?
Yeah, given the nature of this meeting, which is being live streamed, public comments are going to be submitted electronically to publiccomments@townofdyer.com. While watching the stream, you'll notice that address is also present on the video stream itself. Please submit those comments to that.
Hello.
Submit those to that address and they will be read at the appropriate time during the meeting into the record.
Thank you. You have a consent agenda before you, including the minutes of the May 14th, 2020 Redevelopment Commission meeting, the minutes of the May 28th, 2020 Redevelopment Commission meeting, and claims totaling $57,615. We have a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Motion to approve as presented.
I'll second the motion.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Aye.
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 Aye. Next, we have attorney's report. Do we have anything?
Nothing to report.
Director's report?
No, ma'am.
Okay. We have no old business and new business. We had the 2019 annual RDC report. You have it before you, and these are to be presented to.
Oh, they'll go out to all the county and all the overlapping taxing districts, including the town council,
Okay.
required by statute. And with that will be an invitation that we will appear to a meeting if they so desire.
Okay. I'll go to Lake Central. We need a motion to accept the TIF report from Baker Tilly dated April 23rd, 2020.
I'll make a motion that we accept the TIF report from Baker Tilly dated April 23, 2020.
Have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Aye.
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 Aye. Second, we need to consider and approve resolution. You don't have a number on here.
01.
01.
2020-01.
Okay. Notifying the county auditor and all overlapping taxing units that the Dyer RDC will capture 100% of the captured increase in AV increments. Do I have a motion to approve resolution 2020-01?
I'll make that motion.
A second?
I'll second that motion.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Also required by statute.
Yes. Roll call?
Aye.
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 Aye. We have no other new business.
No, ma'am.
Okay. We have any citizen input?
We've not received any comments at publiccomments@townofdyer.com.
We have a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second. All those in favor, voice vote?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you.
Going down the street.
We will continue on with our